Really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. I honestly feel very honored to be the one doing it because you have an incredible story. So,
Thank you, thank you.
just to kind of start there, why don't we dive a bit into to start your childhood and your background growing up? I know you grew up in Miami, one of the worst projects there. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, so when I was about 10 years old, I moved to the projects in Miami, and my auntie that raised me, it's pretty tough environment. Um, my auntie that brought me into the house. Well, actually, before that, we lived in a place called Opalaka in Miami, and it was it wasn't that rough in that area, but I lived in a house with seven, um, well, like 10 people, but I had five cousins and then me and my brother, which made was seven, but yeah, seven in total, and my auntie and my uncle. It was like 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom house. So it was pretty rough. Um, just living in the projects, coming home every day, you got to learn how to fight, gunshots, prostituting, selling drugs. I mean, you seeing everything. Anything that's negative, you're gonna see it in that far as the atmosphere.
Did you feel like that growing up in an environment like that kind of propelled you to grow up and into an adult a lot quicker?
Well, not necessarily. I think what made me more mature was, I grew up without my mom and my dad. So, just growing up without my mom and dad, and then plus having that as a burden, it made me mature faster because at that point I knew, like, it's at this point I don't really have my mom, I don't have my dad. My auntie was very stressed and aggressive with me and my brother. So, she didn't have really the patience. She was a good woman towards us, but the I think the stress that life was bringing on to her, it was too much for her. And just feeling alone, feeling abandoned from my parents made me grow up. I think that made me more mature, and I'm a thinker too. I think I'm a thinker, and then I'm a family oriented person, and me not having that, and I'm always thinking, it made me mature faster. And I said, you know what, I got to get it, because if I don't, I'm gonna end up feeling bad for myself, because I complicated suicide and stuff like that. So it made me mature faster.
I watched an interview where you referred to your childhood like a dark hallway. Can you
Hmm.
elaborate on that a little bit more? What that sort of means and what that feeling was like growing up?
Yeah. So the dark hallway would be you walking in a path and you're by yourself. I felt by myself. I didn't feel like I had light. I didn't feel guided. And then my spiritual aspect of it, until I was 14 years old, I really didn't believe in a God. I was just empty. It was like an empty void. My auntie, we pretty much, we went to church every like 3 days out the week, but I still felt empty. I just felt like I didn't belong on this earth. So it just felt like a dark space, and I just felt like I was going down a path where I didn't have no guidance, and I didn't know where I was going ahead, and I felt blindfolded. So that's what that dark hallway felt like.
What would you say the impact was of going through those hardships and living the life that you did at such an early age had on on your life now, and more specifically your mental health?
Um, Everything, and I would say, as far as my mental health and all the struggles that I went through, if I have not overcame what I went through, I think I would not be here at all. I would have committed suicide. And going through, I would say the first storm in my life would be, I remember when my auntie, the house was about 8 years old, and there was a fire in the house. We had candles in the house, and the house catches on fire, and I wake up my cousin, which is my auntie's son, and I tell him, I say, hey, the house on fire. It's like 3 a.m. in the morning, and he runs in the room. He tells his mom. His mom comes out, and she said, who set my house on fire? Cyrus. He points at me, and my auntie, she comes to me, and she beats me. So that was my first trial where I think to myself, I was like, wow, like this ain't right. And she beat me to where I had to say that I did it. And I mean, it tore me up in the inside. And I think that was the first trial where I overcame it mentally. And then as more trials start to come in my life, I start to see trials as a test. I didn't see it as a trial anymore. I saw it as a test. I didn't see it as a storm. I saw it as I'm getting stronger. And so that's how I look at life now. So every time I go through something, it's a test now, and it's coming to make me stronger than who I am today. So, and the more I share my testimony, the more people come to me and say, "Hey, wow, I needed to hear that because I'm going through something right now." So, um, that's just how I look at all my trials and tribulations. Now, and I compare myself to animals. I could say an eagle is probably one of my favorites. When an eagle go through the storm and he flies at the highest altitude, when the storm comes, he tests out his wings to see if it's strong enough. So that's how I kind of look at all my trials and tribulations now.
When the whole fire incident happened with your aunt, was that the time that the police were called, or was that a separate time?
That was a separate time. Yeah. So that time of my story was when I was 14 years old. Um, I come home, and normally, when you come home, you have chores to do, and my auntie, as soon as I come downstairs, said, "Hey, Tony, I'll go upstairs, clean the restroom." She give me a bag of chips and a soda, and I take it upstairs and I start to eat. And she come upstairs and she flip out, and from that point, I see a fan coming towards me. She getting ready to hit me with a fan, and I grab her. We fall on the bed, and um, she calls the police. She said I punched her and choked her. It was a lie, and I go to jail. And the police looked me in my face and they said, "We know you didn't do it, but we still got to take you to jail." And it's more to this. It's a lot to that story. Where when I'm writing my book now. Well, I'm finished with my book, but where I go in more in depth into that. But just for me to go through that again, I mean, it hurt it. I didn't look at that when I was 14. I didn't look at it as a trial at that point. I wasn't mature yet. That maturity came, I think, once I won the Super Bowl when I was with the Packers. That's when it came, that maturity. I was on the plane back from Green Bay, was heading back to Dallas, and I was just on the plane, and my whole life was flashing. And I was like, wow, man, I went through so much for me to be here. I'm 0%. And literally, like, I'm not even 1% that can make it. I'm 0%. Like, I should not even be on this plane flying back to Dallas. And it hit me. And that's when I knew I got purpose. It's a reason why I was going through all of this stuff. So, a lot of people, they go through stuff and they don't know why. And it's hard. It's tough. And I'm a test and a testimony of it, and I could testify, like, when people do and they commit suicide, and some friends, people say, "Oh, why that person did it." I mean, it's hard, it's tough, and I think that's why I wanted to get my story out now, because I just want to be on that side to where when people hear my story, maybe I'm stopping somebody from doing it. And it's not easy.
Speaking a bit to that, what was the thing that kept you going? Because when you're in that space, and especially when you're that young and you feel that alone, it doesn't really feel like there's anything, again, like you've said, like there's nothing there for you. What was the force that kept you going?
I would say fear. I was afraid to do it, and just it was like I'm fading in and out. Like, just do it. Like, you have no purpose here. And the other side was just fear.
Now, going back to when the police were called and the instance where they looked at you and they basically told you that you you didn't do anything wrong, but you were still going to go to jail. What was going through your head, and how did that make you feel?
Yeah, that was tough. A very turning point in my life where it tore me up because at that point you look at the officers as a protector, and when I knew, because I always, when I was in the house with my aunt, I was afraid of her. When I hear her voice, she made me jump. She said my name a certain way, I jumped. I could feel her presence come through the house. I was just afraid. And I remember days just being in the house crying, thinking about my life. And just being super afraid of her. So when the police came, I felt protected. And when they had me inside of the room, and there was several officers, and they questioned me, and I guess they say, you know what, let me see if this guy's lying. So they had a walkie-talkie, they placed it to my mouth. And it's like, tell the story again. And I tell the story again, and the officers look at each other and they say, yeah, this kid not lying. He has to be telling the truth. And the story didn't make sense on my auntie side. So that's when they tell me at that point, they say, um, um, this we got still got to take you to jail. And it tore me up in the inside. And I said, well, wow, even the officers can't even do nothing. And when I go to jail at 14, I'm sitting in the cell. And in the juvenile, you sit for 24 hours in process. I sat for 3 days. Why? I didn't even know. So after that third day, I get on my knees and I cry out and I say, God, if you real, get me out of here, and I'll serve you for the rest of my life. And I'm crying, but I'm screaming with like with anger. I'm not talking in peace. I'm mad. I'm upset. And and so that's when I think that turning point turned.
I think it's really interesting that you talk about, you know, looking back on your childhood and seeing all of these hurdles as a reason that you got to where you are today, which is ultimately incredibly inspiring. So you went to juvie when you were 14. What were the next couple of weeks like? And what was going through your head as you were after the processing had all taken place and all of this was starting to really set in?
Right, just accepting. I think I got comfortable just accepting stuff like failure and hardship. So after that fourth day, I just accepted what happened to me, and my mind, like I got accustomed to, this is how my life should be. It is what it is. Like, and so I walked around. I remember going through the hallways, and you have to be very disciplined in the juvenile. You have to have your hands by your back, stand in the line. And I would look around and I see kids in there that was in there for reasons. And I'm like, wow, I'm in here for no reason. And so my mind couldn't really understand what was going on, but I just accepted, and I was just, it is what it is. And I remember playing football in the free time that we had. We went to the libraries, and the free time we played football, and all the kids were like, wow, Antonio, man, you can play football. And I was very, at that point, quiet, like, yeah, I know, it's smiling, and you couldn't really get a smile out of me, but my passion was into that football. Like, I was a fast runner, so and that's, I kind of was an outlet for me. And then I was an artist. My free time, I take my time out and I draw, and or I'm a thinker too. I always think. I'm thinking about something. So those the three things: football, thinking, and art. So that's how I kind of like got myself through it.
Do you ever wish that someone, I'm sure you do wish that someone would have stood up for you during those moments in your childhood, but what was your relationship with your brother like during this time? Did you feel a need to protect him from the same things that were happening to you? Or like, what was the dynamic there?
Brother was older than me, so he was the big brother. He ran away when he was 14. So he was already gone when I went to jail. He went to foster care, and I lost contact with my brother. I didn't connect with my brother again until I was 18 years old.
Is there any part of you that wishes that your brother had stayed in your life?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. My brother, just watching, I think comparing myself to other kids that had big brothers, and I was like, wow, man, I wish I had the big brother, the big brother, because I never had my father, I never had the male figure, and I always wish I had that big brother, somebody to model after, or somebody to lend me some money, to protect me, to take care of me. So I walked around with an attitude like I was, I can stand up for myself. I was a fighter. I had a quick temper because I always felt like I'm by myself. Like it's nobody out here. Like if you gonna kill me, kill me. And I used to remember saying that to people. Like if I'm getting in a fight, I say, hey, you gonna kill me, just shoot me. And if you want to fight me, and so I was a very aggressive fighter. When I got in a fight, it wasn't good, and I took a lot out on people because I felt like I don't have nobody to protect me. It's just me. So a lot came out of me, a lot, and it changed later on in life. Though I learned how to control it.
Going back to that time that you spent in juvie, obviously, was that the first time that you kind of discovered your passion for football, or had you been a little bit interested
I've
in it
been in it.
before?
Yeah, I played. My auntie got us involved in football when I was 6 years old. I was very talented, one of the kids that stood out. So I always knew I had the gift for it, but I think I had so much distractions in my life to where football wasn't the focus. Like I never had a dream to play in the NFL because of the survival mode I was in.
Now, there was a man that came into your life around the time that you were coming out of juvie. His name was Noah. Can you tell me a bit
Hmm.
about what it was like, meeting him, forming that relationship, and how he ultimately impacted your life?
But Noah was he was a father figure to me. He wasn't he wasn't a guy that would call me every day, but when he did call, it was always about me. How you doing? And like how do you feel? And it grew to that. In the beginning part of it wasn't like that. It was more he offered free training to me, and I had to bring a Bible verse and never use profanity. And he would read the Bible, and then we trained. There was a guy named Genesis that was there too. So it was me, Genesis, and Noah, and he was on Modella Park, where I grew up at in the projects. And so that was a time of my life where I felt a how can I say it the best words? It was a hunger. When that guy would talk and he would read the Bible, the words out the Bible was more like the words I needed to hear. And I'm a thinker, and that's when I knew that words was powerful. Because my auntie, she spoke a lot of words in my life, and it was negative words. I would never be anything. I'm stupid. I'm dumb. I'd be like my crackhead mom. So those are the words that I heard throughout the years, constantly, and then I hear some positive words, and I'm like, wow, I need to come out here more often. And so I started to come twice out the week, and then Genesis would get me out there more days than twice out the week. It'll be me and Genesis. So that's when that part right there was my turning point in my spiritual realm and the physical, where life was starting to change for me in a positive perspective. But it started to get bad in my house where I live. The more I would go see Noah and Genesis, the more pressure was coming in the household for some reason. And when I turned 17 is when I became homeless.
At that time, you were still living with your aunt before you became homeless.
Correct. So I was in and out. Actually, no, I lied. I was kicked out before that. I want to say 16, 16 going on 17. And I lived with my son, mom at the time
What was
for
going through
about
your
6
head?
months.
What was going through your head when your aunt kicked you out of the house?
After the 50th time, I, not to be funny about it, but I would say the first time it was more me crying. Um, just crying, hurt. After I got used to it, I got immune to it. I was like, all right, I'm gone. I'm out of here. She kicking me out. And I was just used. I was numb. It got to a point when I was 16 years old and she kicked me out, I was just numb to it. It wasn't even, it was nothing. It was like, okay, here we go again. She'll let me back in maybe 3 months, So, um, yeah, that was the process, man. It was almost because she did it so much.
Now, when you talk about being homeless, obviously you're a young guy trying to figure out his life. How did all of that work with you trying to balance what was going on at home, trying to balance the situation with being homeless, and then obviously your relationship with Noah and then school?
It was tough. I kind of lost contact with Noah Wilbanks when I became homeless, and Noah continued to do the speed camp. That camp that we started on Modella Park was 3 guys, me, Noah, and Genesis. It grew to like 100 guys, and I lost contact, and the balance for school. I didn't graduate from high school, and at the time of Florida, we had to take a FCAT Florida test to get your high school diploma. So I didn't graduate, and football, I didn't get recruited. Like, it was just done. My coaches, when I became homeless, my auntie came to the school. She dropped all my bags to the front school, and when she dropped it off, the security, well, the Coach Hudson, he was my wide receiver coach. He comes to my class and was like, Antonio, I need to see you. And at that time, I'm thinking, well, maybe I got a scholarship. And he said, man, I'm sorry to tell you, man, but your auntie just kicked you out. She said she don't want you in her house anymore. And I was like, wow. And it was over a T-shirt, because I didn't want my cousin to wear a T-shirt of mine, one of my favorite shirts. And so I get kicked out over that. And all my clothes was, sent to the school in 2 black bags. And the coach, they tried to help me, and I was more of a shutdown guy. Like, I don't want nobody help. And the coach, they didn't know. At that point, I stopped going to school, and I started sleeping I had a box Chevy at the time. It was $500. I had it for a while, and it wasn't working. So I slept in that car. And some of my friends, they came by. I would go to certain friends' house. I knock on the door, take a shower. Some days I wouldn't take a shower. And then certain people would help me. And one day, one of my guys, he wasn't doing the right thing at the time, and he allowed me to come stay with him. And I came and I stayed with him and his sister, and I slept in one of the rooms. His sister had a baby. Well, she was having a baby, and eventually she told me I had to leave, and the story goes on.
You talk about people offering help and wanting to potentially get you out of what they saw was obviously a very bad situation. Do you wish that people would have pushed harder to help you?
I think at that point of my life, I was just done with reaching out, because before I reached out to several people and I asked them, can I come stay with them? And they told me no, they don't have space. I lived with an auntie before that because I lived with 2 aunts. My first auntie, I didn't touch on that story. When I lived with her, she kicked me out, me and my brother out to the streets with my aunt, with my mom. Well, we was on the street, and my mom was on the streets at the time. So, I mean, I done been so hurt to where I didn't want to live with anyone no more. I was like, you know what? I just do it on my own. Because now at this point, I'm 17, going on 18. I feel like I'm very mature at this time because I done saw so much. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just done with living with people. I'm done. And even the first time with my friend, when he offered to for me to stay with him and his sister, I turned that down first. And then after that, that's when I received it. I said, no, you know what? Let me come stay with you. So I think I was just fed up.
You didn't finish high school. So what were those years like before you ultimately went to Nickel State?
So me not finishing high school, no, I got in contact. I was working at Walmart at the time when I was living with my friend. I got a job at Walmart, and I was trying to find out how can I get into college, and I knew several people was taking this high school diploma. It was like it was a fake diploma, really. You pay $50 for it, you take it online, and they send you a diploma. So that's what I did, and I tried to enroll into Miami-Dade Community College, and they denied it. I tried the schools in Cali, they denied it, the junior colleges. So I tried the junior college in Minnesota called International Falls, and I got accepted into the school. I sent all my transcripts, I sent the diploma, and I got accepted. So I was kind of nervous because I got denied twice, and I knew the diploma wasn't legit. And um, so at that point, I'm like, well, I'm going to junior college. So I go off to junior college. I sit out a year of high school. Or the next year I sit out a year. I don't go to school until that following year, and I go to junior college in Minnesota for 2 years, and then that's when I go off to UL Lafayette, and then I leave UL Lafayette, and then I go to Nicholls State.
During your time at the community college, obviously that was a huge life change. You went from Miami all the way to Minnesota. What was that like? Obviously, it's a massive change in your life. You're going basically like across the country. So can you talk a bit about that?
Right. I was ready. I mean, I was so ready to go. I got on the bus. I paid $50 for a Greyhound, and it was like a charter bus, and I paid $50. It took me 3 days to get there. The moment I got there, I was so ready. I get off the bus, I check into my dorms, I see parents checking the kids in. I mean, I was hurt from that, not having family to move me into college, so that hurted me big time. Just seeing everybody, but my mind was focused on it's time to get it, and I'm changing my life, and I got control of my life for the first time. I finally have control of my life, and something is going right. So I just felt so good. And for those 2 years, I bust my butt every single day. I had a drive that nobody had. A lot of my teammates that came up there, they didn't want to work out every day. I worked out every single day. My grades was good. I studied. I did everything to have the advantage, and I outwork every single body, no matter. Because a lot of guys were saying, well, we at this small school, we'll never go nowhere. I said, I will. So my mindset was different. So it was probably one of the best experiences I ever had. And it was a small school, and we was in the middle of nowhere, so it was cold as heck. I think the coldest was -21. We was 5 minutes from Canada, from the border. So it was different. The culture was different, but I was ready. Mentally, I was ready, and I was focused. I was really focused. And at the time, I had a son. My son was 1 or 2 years old, I believe. So he was my motivation, and I wasn't turning back.
Is that your son being your motivation? Would you say that is the reason why? I mean, there's people that go through horrible things in their childhood, and it's almost like they just never get to a point where they want a better life for themselves because they don't see anything beyond the challenges that they're going through or the challenges that they've faced. Is that
Right.
your driving motivation for taking that step and wanting a better life for yourself?
So I use this quote: someone must eat the dirt for someone to drink the water. And I ate the dirt for my son to drink water. So he was my motivation. And when I would think, and then all the people, like my mom motivated me, just for giving me up at the time. And that's the understanding that I had. My dad motivated me for abandoning me. My auntie, the words that she said to me, both aunts. So teachers, I had some teachers doubt me. So it was so much when I could remember, me in school getting ready to give up. The work was hard. The workouts was hard. And I would think about all the doubts, my son. I used every single negative and I turned it to positive. And it pushed me so much to where I wasn't stopping. So my son was definitely, I would say, at the top of the motivation because I didn't want him to go through what I was going through.
You hear a lot of
I
people
get a taste of it,
who have reached this level of success after having gone through very, very hard things in their life, and basically saying that the reason why they were so focused on getting there was, one, because they didn't feel like they had anything to lose. Their life had
Hmm.
been so bad up until that point that realistically speaking, what did they have to lose if they just tried one more thing? As crazy as it was, or as insane as other people thought it was, what did they have to lose? Now, obviously, you had your son.
Hmm.
But what does it feel like to be able to look back and acknowledge that people had doubted you and you were able to pull from within in order to kind of, in a sense, prove them wrong?
Feels good because I get to stand on the side where I'm standing on the right side of history, I would say. And what I mean by that, I wasn't disrespectful to them. Like, so when they did doubt me, I took it as is and I proved them wrong. So, they had to eat their words and they had to deal with what they said to me, how they treated me. So, I even had coaches tell me I would never make it to the NFL. And then I had the same coaches that told me that they give me phone. I had one of my coaches actually. He just indicted me into the Hall of Fame for junior college. He was one of the guys to tell me that, and he called me. It's like, Tonio, man, you the first guy ever to go into the Hall of Fame here. So, it was the same guy to tell me I'll never go nowhere. And out of respect, I never disrespected the guy. So I just kept it in. I just took his words and I accepted what he said, and I changed the narrative. And then I had another coach when I was at Yale Lafayette told me not to leave the school because if the NFL was something on my mind, I'm crazy. I shouldn't do that. And he called me, he congratulated me when I won a Super Bowl. So, and I just heard him. I didn't say, hey, man, forget you, man, and all. I just took what they said, and now I'm on the right side of history, and out of respect, I think when people doubt you, you just let them speak their mind, you know, and we just prove them wrong.
You didn't meet your dad until you were in your early 20s. Can you tell me a bit about what that experience was like?
It was definitely when he first called my phone because my dad is Haitian. My mom called me and she said, "Hey, your dad. I saw your dad at the bank, and he's going to call you. Give me your phone number." I'm getting ready to graduate from college at the time, so I'm at Nicholls State in Louisiana, and this guy calls me, and I can hear his voice and say, "Okay." He's like, "You know who this is?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "It's my dad." He's like, "Yeah." So he told me that he was coming to my graduation, and he never showed up. So it was almost like at that point I didn't hold him to it because I done been let down so many times. So it was I would say I was happy that finally I get to see him, but at the same time it was a disappointment that happened.
Do you have any resentment for your dad not being involved in your life?
The time that he called on Father's Day, and I was in Chicago. I was playing with the Bears at the time, and he called me. He said, "Hey, why didn't you call me?" Now I think we just built a relationship for like a year and a half at the time, and the only thing I can remember me saying for the past 24 years, I never had to call anyone and say Happy Father's Day. So how dare you call me and question me? And I went off on him. And after that, a couple of days later, I apologized, but I pretty much I was hurt because I got taken advantage of as a kid, and I didn't have someone, and I know what it is to be a man. We are protectors, so he wasn't a protector. So knowing you have a kid out there, and I felt like he could have easily found me, you know. So I was definitely upset and mad.
So you went to two colleges before, or two colleges, two different schools before you ultimately were thinking about going to the NFL, correct?
I went to three. So I did junior college, Rainy River Community College. I went to UL Lafayette, and then I went to Nicholls State.
Let's talk about Nicholls State a bit. So
Hmm.
went to Nicholls State for how many years?
2 years.
2 years. And during that time, you achieved some pretty notable things in regards to your football career. Can you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, so I was the leading yards per catch. I had 31 yards to catch in the whole country, including Division One, Division Two, D1 AA. That was just college football, period. So that was a huge accomplishment for me, and it got me noticed. And again, I never had the NFL on my mind like that. I was just out there having fun and just having fun, working hard, and I led the whole country in yards per catch in my offense. And the offense that I played in was a very complicated offense because we ran the triple option, a complicated offense for a receiver. The triple option is an offense that's made for running backs. It's not made for receivers. So when I first got there, the opposite receiver, he was 6'6", and he told me, he said, "Hey, you're going to struggle in this offense." I had 100 yards last year. And with the mindset that I developed through my childhood, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to struggle. So I just overcame, and I had 620 yards my junior year. So, and my life, what I went through in life allowed me to beat anything. Anything is possible. So that's what my mindset was able to see through anything that I see or go through.
What was that feeling like when you were starting to get noticed by people? There was a little bit more press involved. Now you have NFL teams looking at you to recruit you. What was that moment and that period of time like?
Winning. I was on the winning side, so I felt like a winner for the first time. I can remember me saying all the no's when people say no, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, and it was finally yes. So it was in that yes, I can do it, and it felt amazing. It felt amazing to feel important, noticeable, and just feel important. So and feel valuable. So it felt amazing.
Is that the first time you've ever felt like that?
Yeah, my first time. Um, like far as yeah, yeah, I would say that was my first time.
So you were
I felt
recruited.
like that in little league football a little bit because I had some coaches that kind of like stood me out in front of people and Antonio, but I think I had so much stuff going on at home to where I couldn't really notice it. But for the first time completely, where I didn't have anything going, no issues, that was the first time ever was college and at Nickel State because I was still going through stuff at junior college too.
What was how did the rest of your life look during that time? Like, obviously you were successful in football. I would assume you were doing well in school. How was all of that kind of playing its role in your life? And what was your mental health like in that period of your life?
No, I mean, it was good. I think at that point I started to connect with my mom, and my mom was talking more. She was fine because my mom did 6 years in prison. She was getting off drugs, so we was talking. I was talking to my brother. My brother had been to prison, and he was on a little drugs, but we was talking. I got in contact with my sister. Because I didn't meet my sister until she was 18 years old. So I finally had a chance to talk to her. So everything that was important to me outside of football was all going my way. And, at that point, I'm talking to my son every day. I maybe a little drama with me and his mom, but it wasn't bad. But I'm talking to him every day. And, I was in a good state of mind. I was in a good state of mind. And I was able to finally feel the importance of like my purpose here on earth.
And you talk about your mom doing a bit of time in prison and the fact that she was on drugs throughout your childhood and before you were born. Can you touch a bit on how that has ultimately affected your life now, and looking back, how it may have actually affected your childhood?
Well, my childhood life definitely messed me up. I hated to see people on drugs. I hated drugs. Still today, I speak against it. Anytime I see somebody smoke, do drugs, I go against it. It was because it destroyed my mom, and I did some education on it, how powerful drugs are. She tried her best to get off, and it's an addictive drug. She was on, I want to say, crack. So it's an addictive drug, and um, it definitely. But yeah, I'm anti drug. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
So going back to obviously your father, when did you become a dad?
When I was 17 years old.
What was that experience like? And what was happening in your life at that time?
Well, that time I was kicked out. I was living with my son, mom at the time, and me and his mom we was in love. We was high school sweethearts, and we planned Antonio. Like we sat and planned it. I didn't, and not been mature enough. Like, look, you don't have no money, you don't have a job, and we still just planned a baby. And her mom was upset, but when he came, and it was definitely a great feeling for me. And that's when all the bad stuff started happening. I became homeless and stuff like that. So
How did you manage to stay involved in his life through the next couple of years while you were going to school and pursuing your football dreams?
communication. I called every single day. Made sure I talked to him every single day. It was communication. And then when I came, every time I come, the holidays, anytime I came home, I made sure he was with me, so he'll come stay with me. And then after that, when I leave, I drop him back off to his mom. So it was a more communication and just being active, just being proactive in his life and communicating and always staying involved.
What was important to you, having grown up the way that you did, for your relationship with your son?
Just being there, protector, being able to have someone to talk to, being that friend, laughing with that person. I wanted to do all the things that I didn't have with my son, which I did. Just being his best friend almost in a sense. And um, right now he's a grown man now. He's 18 now. He's in college himself. So he's at Wake Forest.
What was that moment like for you?
So for the past when he was in eighth grade, he received his first scholarship. He was offer from the University of Tennessee. So it was like, man, I had a lot of fun from eighth grade all the way to his 12th grade year, just to see him grow and the maturity, and going on college tours with him throughout those 4 years. It was a blessing. And the day that I dropped him off the weight, I cried like a baby because I'm like, this guy's my best friend. And man, I cried, and his mom was looking at me, and I was like, because he lived with me. My son stayed. I raised him from 11 all the way up. When he came in full time, I got getting full custody of him. But we became best friends, and so um, it definitely made me cry.
Let's talk a bit about your career in professional football. So
Hmm.
starting back when you were getting all those offers from the NFL, you mentioned that you received all this attention, you were getting these offers, but you went undrafted. Can you talk a bit about
Hmm.
what that was like?
Yeah, so it's a bittersweet. So coming out of Nicholls State University, it's a small college, so majority guys don't get drafted out of there. So to even get noticed out of Nicholls State University is a huge deal. The guy before me was Ladarius Webb. He gets drafted in the third round, but he plays corner. I'm playing wide receiver. It's a little more difficult, and receivers getting drafted, and I knew it. So I was projected fifth, sixth, seventh round, and throughout the draft process, I had several teams called me throughout the draft. They was, we're gonna draft you in the sixth round. We're gonna draft you, and then Chicago calls me, and they said, look, we're not gonna draft you, but we're gonna go undrafted free agent with you, and we're just being honest. And when I went undrafted, I had about maybe 28 teams call me for the undrafted free agent, and I chose Chicago Bears. I felt more comfortable with Coach Lovie Smith. And when I went to the visit to Chicago, Lovey and Mike Martz, Lovey knew about my mom. He knew my story. I'm like, wow, this guy did his homework. So I felt a lot comfortable with them. And then Green Bay was probably the second team that I felt comfortable with. It was a guy named Alonzo Highsmith. He's originally from Miami. He was a scout there. And he loved my story. He said your story reminds me of Donald Driver. He was playing currently for the Packers. He had a similar story like mine's, homeless and stuff like so. The underdog story, and then Seattle was another team that I liked that I went on a visit before the draft. So those are all the three teams that I went on visits for, and I played for all three. I played for Chicago, Seattle, and won the Super Bowl with Green Bay.
For people who don't necessarily know the difference between being drafted and then entering the league as a free agent, can you just explain what the difference between those two is?
Yeah, so undrafted free agent is when you get to choose. Like you don't get drafted, so you choose. You still get a signing bonus, and that signing bonus can be the same as a 7-round draft pick. So you're pretty much listed as a 7-round draft pick, per se, but you have the option of where you want to go. So you'll probably have 15 or 20 options of teams, and they all will call you to say, "Hey, we got to." And it all depends. Some certain teams they give you more bonus. They say, "Hey, you come here, we'll give you this much." And some guys can get more than a 7-rounder. It all depends. And then being drafted, you just wherever they select you, that's where you're going. You have no say so.
So you started your career with the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
What was that first week with the team like in a professional setting?
It was awesome. The Chicago Bears were first class organization. Everything is professional. And I went there with a cracked tibia, and I knew I was hurt. But again, I wanted to make money, and I wanted a way out of, all my struggles and stuff like that. So it was challenging too at the same time. So my career in the NFL was another test. And the moment I got there, I never got hurt playing football. Never had an injury. The moment I go into the NFL, I have cracked tibia out of nowhere, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
What obviously being injured as an athlete is a massive, massive thing, especially when you're playing at the level that you played at. What was going through your head, after first finding out about this injury, and then in the weeks, months following that? How did you feel? Obviously, this being your first injury.
I kind of knew I was gonna get cut, so I went back to that day when I was 14 in that jail, crying. I was on my knees in the dorms in training camp, and I was just crying, and it's like I had no control. And as much as I tried to run on that field, I couldn't. I couldn't give my best. I couldn't um, perform at the highest level. So, when something is like, I just knew, like, yeah, they're gonna cut me. So it was definitely challenging for me.
What was the recovery process like?
I came back to Miami, and the recovery took about 3 years. So it took a long time. I didn't recover until I went to Canada. That's when my bones start. No, actually, the UFL. I was still hurt in Canada. So it was just a long process. When you have a cracked tibia, the only way it can heal is you just stay off it. You have to stay off. And I didn't have time. I didn't have time to stay off. And at least that's what I thought. But I just kept playing and prolonging it.
How did that affect your mental health, being injured and in some sense removed from the game in the way that you wanted to be?
Well, when I got it drove me closer to God. When I got to Seattle, I remember I strained my calf, and they was getting ready to activate me to the 53-man roster. So I fly out to New Orleans Saints, and a scout comes to me. He said, "Antonio, you getting ready to be activated for the next game." So I said, "Okay, I'm be on the 53-man roster." Which if you make the 53-man roster from practice squad, your money go up. We're talking about 15,000 more. So I'm saying I have to. We say, and that's weekly. So I'm saying, you know what? I'm gonna let these people know my calf muscle is strained because I'm just fighting through pain at this time. And so when I tell them, hey, my calf muscle strained, they go back, and I get cut the next morning when we fly back to Seattle. And I just look in the sky and say, God, this on you. I'm done. At that point, my mental health, I'll say, you know what? If anything, I'm going to protect myself as far as mentally. I'm not going to stress myself out. And I just left it up to God. I said, it's on you. You created all things. I'm not going to sit and worry about this. And so I got cut. I went home and, I just started to serve people. I went home and I was living with my mother-in-law at the time. And it was a lot of fussing and fighting going on. Not fussing and fighting, but complaining about like dishes. Her son wasn't cleaning the dishes. So what I did was I cleaned all the dishes in the house, cleaned everything before they got home. I just said, I'm going to just serve. So every chance I had to serve, I served. And I got picked up fast. I actually had to work out with Tampa. Then I had to work out with St. Louis Rams. And then Green Bay picked me up.
Talk about the experience there versus what kind of how your first experience with the Chicago Bears had influenced you going into this next team and what that looked like.
When you say influence,
basically what you learned, I guess, as a first-time player in the league versus now being more of a conditioned player. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of knew how to protect myself as far as fighting through this pain of my tibia, but I didn't have the correct information. And I wish I had a father at that point, somebody to talk to. And that's when I think having that father figure, that male figure, to reach out to for guidance, to guide you through these processes. Because at that level right there, you need a mentor. You need somebody to talk to. And I didn't have that. So when I got to Green Bay, I had to sign a waiver. And that waiver pretty much said, hey, if your tibia give you any problems, we can cut you. You're done. So I didn't have a mature guidance, somebody to guide me through that. So what I did was I fought through the pain, and which I don't think was smart to do. I think I should have signed that waiver, signed that contract, and eventually I should have said, hey, look, my tibia hurt. I can't fight through this no more. And I think Green Bay would have helped me out because they're a first-class organization, so because sometimes you get in the NFL, like, some of the people in the NFL, it's like some people feel like, hey, man, they're trying to set me up. They want to cut me. So you feel that way sometimes. And some of the teams they have that integrity. They want to help the players out. And I know Green Bay was one of those teams. They was one of the first-class organizations. But I knew that after I got cut. So just going into Green Bay was probably the best team I played on, as far as players, organization, the front office. Man, I love that place. Loved it.
I think obviously there's a lot of information out there about what it's like to be a professional athlete and the privilege that you get in terms of, like, obviously you're making quite a bit of money playing a sport that you love. Can you talk a bit about what it was like having grown up the way that you did and now coming into this place where you were almost on a pedestal as an athlete?
You just pretty much you feel entitled. I mean, I would say entitled. Yeah, entitled. You feel almost like a god in a sense. You feel like a god. You feel like you're on top of the world because you see people asking for autographs every single day. People treat you different. You get stuff for free. You're making all this money and you don't even have to pay for anything. So you can save a lot of money. People let you in clubs for free. People want to be a part of you. They want to be your friends. So you get the special treatment. And coming from the environment that I came from, at the lowest you could probably be, it was a surreal feeling for me. And I think I embraced it. Yeah, I definitely embraced it. I wish I would have took more videos and pictures. I would say that. Yeah.
You should definitely be proud of yourself. It's an amazing thing that you were able to do for yourself and for your life and now for your son. You won the Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. What was that experience like? How long were you there before you guys won the Super Bowl?
So I was there for 3 weeks, and then we won the Super Bowl. I got picked up. I went in and worked out for 2 teams before Green Bay. No, I'm sorry. I was with the Seattle Seahawks, and they cut me, and then next week Green Bay picked me up. So when I was there, um, man, it was awesome. And when we won the Super Bowl, sitting in the room because I play the guys that I play with, the receivers. Four of those guys will probably be in the Hall of Fame. So they're very, very good receivers. So I had a chance to play with some really good guys. Some names: Donald Driver. He played like 19 years. I watched that guy playing when I was a high school kid. That's how long he was playing. Greg Jennings. He was really good. Probably be a Hall of Famer. Jordy Nelson, really good, Hall of Famer. James Jones, really good. So I played with some really good receivers. Um, and then winning the Super Bowl was surreal for me. And I would say because where I came from. And on the way back from Green Bay, I mean, from Dallas, because we played in Dallas, back to Green Bay is where I cried tears of joy for the first time. First time I ever let out tears, and I wasn't sad. I was happy. It was almost like crying and laughing at the same time. And so, it was just a huge accomplishment for me. And for the first time, I was able to be happy for myself, say, hey, I did it. Like this is something that I accomplished. So, and I went through all of that. And like, I beat all the odds. And so it felt good. It felt good. And so it's a really good feeling. I would tell people that's out there when they go through trials and tribulations, just keep going through it. Embrace the struggle because that feeling right there, money can't buy that feeling. You have to experience it to feel what I felt that day.
After winning the Super Bowl, now you're even more in the press. Your name's out there even more. And you talk about people giving you stuff for free and all these perks of being an athlete that you kind of expect those things even from the way it looks on social media. But did you ever feel like you had to be cautious of friendships, relationships, anything like that because of your status in the NFL?
Me at that time, no. I think I was receiving anything because I didn't have a mentor, so I was vulnerable to anything. So yeah, I mean, and I really believe that you shouldn't be that way. Like you should be very cautious of who you receive things from or take things from. But I think I was blessed to not get taken advantage of so early. But I did, and I think I did later on. Um, but yeah, I was just receiving anything from anybody.
What did your circle look like of support people in your life at this time, if you had one? Was it a
hmm
tight group of people? What was your relationship with your coaches like?
Um, just my cousins, my it was positive circle. I always was a mature guy, so I knew what I wanted to be around. Like if you did drugs, I didn't want to be around you. If you did anything illegal, I didn't want to be around you. So the type of people that I was around, people that brought laughter, told jokes. I wish I would have been around more mature people that was in more of the business side of it and trying to be entrepreneurs, but I wasn't at that time. So, but it wasn't. It was mediocre. I would say mediocre.
What did your life transpire into, or how did your life look in those next couple of years after winning the Super Bowl? Were you satisfied with how far you'd come? Was it enough?
Nah, because I didn't play as much as I wanted to, and I had that injury still. So going into that next year, I signed another contract with Green Bay, and I'm still hurt. And then that's when the lockout hits. So the lockout is when players go on strike, the owners, everybody's on strike. So like the league is locked out for a couple of months, and then we go back in, and then we start the season. So at this time, I'm actually my mental health is kind of down at this time because I'm still hurt, and I'm trying to figure out like I just won a Super Bowl. Do I really still want to play? Do I want to give it up? My leg is killing me. I don't see this thing healing up no time soon. Um, I'm looking up results on the internet and saying it takes a year. So I played the 4 games of the season, the preseason games, and I get cut that last fourth game. And at that point, I go from Super Bowl guy to back to square one. So I'm like, dang, man, and so at that point, yeah, I'm just back to square one. So, and I play arena football at that point, and then the UFL, and then the Canadian Football League.
There's a lot of speculation. This is just more a personal thing than anything, but I'm from Canada, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know what the difference specifically as an athlete were going from the CFL, or sorry, the NFL to the CFL, and what kind of, I guess, implications on both your career and how you were
Mm-hmm.
feeling making that change mentally.
You definitely don't want to go because the pay is low. The branding it's a lower brand, and so obviously you want to be a NFL player. So you're like, man, I don't want to play in this league. And I was hurt at the same time, so I'm going through that, the injury. I don't want to play in this league. So the transition is it's a humbling transition. You don't want to play because you're coming from the highest of highs. So um, it's just a transition that you just got to go through.
Did that feel like a failure to you?
I wouldn't say a failure. I would say more of a like a stomp. Like it's just more like I got to pretty much because I always said my injury. Like I said, the reason why I'm here is because of my injury. Because I always knew that I was that guy. Like I can play, um, but if I didn't have this injury, I won't be here. I won't be in the CFL. I'll be still playing in the NFL. So that's my perspective was that.
Do you feel like you have any regrets about your career, something that you feel you could have done differently? And if you do, what impact does that have on the decisions that you make now?
Yeah, so I definitely have regrets. Um, when I was in college, I wish I would have took advantage of the training room, the cold tub, and took care of my body more. Um, and now that I'm a personal trainer here in South Florida, I'm one of the top speed coaches here. I train a lot of kids. I implement recovery a lot. I'm big on recovery, nutrition, taking care of your body, and I'm big on that. So hitting the cold tub, doing it when you don't want to do it, taking care of your body because you guys are, you're athletes. You run around all day. You're not a robot. So I wish I would have took advantage. And all my coaches old school mentality, old school philosophy. And like, hey, you guys hit the cold tub, you soft, and I bought into that. And I wish I would never bought into it. I wish I would have went into the cold tub because I believe that cold tub would have saved my life. Um, so yeah, that's how I kind of look at it.
Speaking a bit about that, obviously there is that still that stigma in sports where if you're injured or if something happens, and I would assume it's quite a big deal in football, especially because of how physical the sport is, but there's almost this mentality that if you do get hit, you just get back up and you keep going. And so it's interesting to see that now, and I'm very happy to see this, that there's kind of a change coming in the way in which, especially with younger athletes, the way that we're communicating with them about listening to their bodies and basically, like you said, taking the time that they need to rest.
Right.
So what would you say, did you ever think that you would be doing what you're doing now?
Oh, I thought I was gonna be a football player until like 38. I'm 37 now, and then after that, own a farm and ride some horses. So yeah, I never thought I'd be doing this. So, but yeah, I guess in life is I think the way I look at life, I just take whatever life gives me, I take it and I try to just live it. I try not to control it too much, if that makes sense. I try not to make too many plans, like because life can throw a curveball, and so you have to turn that curveball into the ball that you want. So then that's what I do. I turn it into whatever it throws at me. Okay, I see what I can make out of it, and I do it, and I make the best of it, and I go hard in it. I give it on my all. So
What advice would you give to someone who is maybe scared to take that jump or is constantly looking for something else to come their way? I know you say that you kind of just let life happen and make the best out of it
mhm.
from there, but if you could give somebody younger than you or a younger athlete a piece of advice in regards to just letting life happen, what would it be? What advice would you give them?
You only got one life to live, and you're not coming back here. So when your time is up, and we all are sitting here for a reason, a purpose, and get it done. You don't want to look back. That's what wakes me up every day and gives me that drive, that hunger, just knowing that it's only one life. You don't come back here, so you got to give everything you have, and find your purpose. Find your purpose, and your purpose can whatever you like, whatever you don't like, whatever bothers you and gets on your nerves. That's your purpose because you're the problem solver of that, whatever that is. So and find it and go after it. Whatever imagination or vision that's in your head, do it. It don't matter. Like if somebody say, "Hey, it's not meant for you to do it. You're not going to ever get it done." Do it. If you see it, it's meant for you to do it. And the imagination is powerful. And if it's in your head, it's not in your head for no reason.
You're now in a much different place in life. What role does spirituality play in your life now versus when you were that 14-year-old kid coming out of juvie?
When I was 14, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't believe in anything. But now, um, I consider myself as a believer of Christ. I um I live it wholeheartedly. And I live the Bible. Like the stories that's in the Bible, like they can add my story in there now. Like that's the type of stuff. Like I done experienced some stuff, and I did exactly what the Bible say do, and I experienced it and it manifests. So I believe it, and so that's what I preach to. I don't force God on nobody. Force my philosophy on anyone. But I like when they come a part of my life, they're gonna see it. They'll witness it. So, um, but yeah,
Have a relationship with your mother still?
my mom passed away 2 years ago. So she died of an overdose, and the last time I saw her, she was in the bed, dead. Um, and before she passed, I already accepted that she was gonna die soon because I was trying to get her to come live with me, and she wouldn't do it. And I kind of knew she was on drugs still. She got back on it, and yeah, she passed away at 52 years old.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
Is there any part of you that wishes that you could have, in a way, saved her, if that's the right way to say that?
Mm, no, because I kind of at her funeral, I just let her go. Um, I think she was suffering from the drug, and I accepted that she was suffering, and she was trying her best to get off it, but she couldn't. And I just used my understanding, and I said, you know what? She went out the way she wanted to go out, and so and I moved on from it. And I miss her dearly. Great conversations, laughter. She's a very funny woman. She's real. Um, and I would say like for people that because I mentor a lot of kids now, and I run a program called P5. We work with kids all over the country over Zoom calls, and we mentor kids. And one of the biggest things of my P5s, the five protocols, one of the big things are one of the five protocols are family, and we talk about embracing your mom, your dad, if you have them, because you just never know when they may leave. So, and a bunch of kids that I mentor, a lot of them complain about their parents. my mom's too hard on me. My dad he's too hard. And I'd rather for my dad to be hard on me and not be in my life. So I just changed the perspective of the kids. And it's not their fault, I believe. It's just seeing a different perspective of seeing someone else's perspective. You know, what if you didn't have your parents? How would you feel then? Would you be complaining then? So just giving them a different perspective. So, but yeah.
So now that you're in a position where you're kind of acting as this influential figure in a lot of young people's lives, mentally speaking, what is the biggest thing that you see, and how can somebody kind of overcome that to become the best version of themselves?
I think the biggest thing, the way you become the best version of yourself, is speaking into your life, daily affirmation. Whatever you listen to on a daily, that's who you're gonna become. So I'm big on like music, telling kids, hey, be careful what you listen to. Be careful what you feed in yourself. So if you feed yourself nonsense, that's what's gonna come out. That's how you're gonna respond. You're not gonna be the champion. You're not gonna be who you want to be. If you feed yourself daily affirmation, you feed yourself positive stuff. You listen to, audio tapes. Anything that's positive, you're feeding your conscious. You're going to become that and speak it. Not only just hear it, you want to speak it. You want to speak over your own life, and because words are powerful. And I tell all kids that, man, everybody got a champion in them. Everybody is a leader. There's nobody out here that just dumb and stupid and you just lost. Nobody. Everybody has a champion. Every single body. So that's what I do. Mm-hmm. Say it again.
What's next for you? What do you see in the next 5-10 years?
So what I'm working on now is what I'm doing right now on this call. So getting out my story on the social media platform, speaking engagements. I just finished my book, and I want to take it as far as I can. I want to start doing speaking engagements and continue to get out my story.
When is your book going to be released, and where can people find it?
So it will be released in the summer. They can follow me on my social media platforms, IG, Tonio Robinson, ITONIO ROBINSON. Or they can follow me on my business page as well at next_level_speed. And I have a Facebook, Antonio Robinson. I have a website, Antonio Robinson as well.com. And the book will be released in the summertime.
Well, I, for one, am very excited to read it. I think your story is incredibly inspiring, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to kind of share it here. Again, I'm very honored to be the one to kind of bring it out to the world, so to speak. Is there anything else that you feel a young person listening to this can benefit from hearing today, besides everything that you've already said?
I would say the biggest thing right here, one of my favorite quotes: if you're going through something, remember, somebody must eat the dirt. And if you're going through it, it's because somebody before you didn't eat the dirt. So eat the dirt for the person behind you to drink the water. And I mean, it takes, you gotta just throw away your ego and eat that dirt. It don't taste good. It doesn't. And that dirt can be that trial. That dirt can be my coach don't like me. That dirt can be my mom don't like. It can be whatever it is that feel uncomfortable to you. Just eat it, and so the people behind you can have a better life. And so because we're not going to be here forever, and I think once we leave, somebody else come right behind us. So it was just preparing the chair or the room, whatever it is. I'm preparing that spot for the next person, and so that's how I look at life.
Amazing. I have one more question. Are you happy?
That's the question?
That's the question.
If I could go scale to 1 to 10, I'm sitting at like a 7 right now. Because to be happy is to fulfill your purpose here on the earth. And so I'm in that right now, and that's the transition that I'm trying to start. My purpose is to start the speaking engagements and stuff. So I wouldn't say necessarily fully happy, but I'm sitting at 7 right now. I'm three points off.
So when your book comes out and I see you all over the news, then we'll be talking again, and it will be like an 8 or a 9.
Right. It's gonna be tears of joy then. So, and I wouldn't say upset or mad or anything like that, but my happiness is more of, if I can say, like I feel incomplete still. Like I gotta finish it. I gotta get it done. So when I'm not doing it, I feel unhappy. If I would say, yeah, that's what it is. So
Is there anything, okay, sorry, one more question, and then we can
that's
kind of wrap
okay.
this up. Is there anything that you do on a day-to-day basis that is tangible that other people could also do that helps you be more on purpose, happy, aligned with your goals?
Right. Right. So what I do is I eat really good. I eat a lot of fruits. I think that's huge. It plays a very big role in your mood swing. Just eating good, taking the proper vitamins, staying away from junk food. So, and then outside of that, I work out. I do Pilates. I work out as far as like an athlete sometimes. Um, that keeps me in the right mindset. Staying away from, it's hard to stay away from negativity, but trying your best to stay away from it. And when negative stuff does occur, don't get upset. You got to be able. You have to be fully equipped to be able to, you know, overcome that negativity or turn it into positive. So I think I prepared myself well, and I listen to a lot of teachers on YouTube. Like I got like 3 teachers that I listen to daily, and I feed myself positive words, positive information on a daily. I do that a lot just to get my mind right, and then I listen to some spiritual music um, daily as well, but not as much as the audio tapes. I think I'm more of an audio tape guy over the music,
Awesome. I think
and then I have to communicate with family. Like if I don't talk to my son or family or my sister or something, yeah, I'm not. Cause I'm a family guy too, so I have to talk to my son every single day. Like I'm like, bro, I got to talk to you, bro. You have to call me. So I'm big on that.
But again, I thank you so much for taking the time. Your story is incredible. You're doing amazing things,
Hmm.
and I'm excited to see what happens next.